hello everybody and welcome back to UI5ers Live. To start with, I want to introduce our panelists for today, and I begin with Marian Zeis. Say hello. No?
No.
So yeah, many thanks that you joining us or that you accepted actually our invitation on such a short notice. Yeah, really great to see you here. Yeah, Marian replied to one of our tweets about this episode, and he mentioned that he already benefit from the latest innovation in the barcode scanner control. So we get in contact with him and asked if he want to join today and showcase his work. So, and here he is. That's really cool. Yeah, and as a next guest, we have James Zhang with us and his colleague Raman Sethi. Not sure with your last name.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
That's right.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Yeah, great that you both joined, especially James. I think at your place it's 9 o'clock at nighttime, right? So it's really cool that you could make it. Really cool. Yeah. Yeah, James leads one of our mobile development teams in Shanghai, and he will present exact this innovation in the barcode scanner control Marian already adopted. Yeah, and Raman is here. He is the PO or even APO, I'm not sure, for this control. And so if you have special questions to this, then Raman is your guy for that. And then last but not least, Johannes Gluch is here. Say
hi, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, Johannes is from our development team here in Waldorf and is involved in the enhancement to replace the synchronous requests in UI5. Here, new factory APIs exist, which Johannes will explain, and then in these connections demonstrate how to load XML content in an asynchronous way. Yeah, and for everything beyond, I have great support again from my dear colleagues and co-hosts, Stefan Beck.
Hi.
Peter Müßig.
Hey.
And Andreas Kunz.
Hello.
So let's dive into the topics, and we will start with James and the barcode scanner control.
Hey everyone, yeah, thank you for inviting me for this demo. Yeah, I'm James Zhang from Shanghai. I'm leading a development team working on the SMP SDK and also Capsule Fire Client in Shanghai office. Raman is the PO for this product, so also inviting him, helping me to answer some of the questions. I have a slide here, just one page. Actually, this slide, initially I'm trying to show both UI5 scanner button and also a native scanner button my team has done. But today, we will focus on the UI5 button enhancement in this session. Maybe you already know the Fire Client is going to sunsetting in March next year. So there's a lot of questions after Fire Client sunsetting. How about this barcode scanner button? That's why recently my team has working on this, enhance the existing barcode scanner UI5 button to add in the JavaScript capabilities. If we detect the current environment is in the native browser, don't have the code, we will trigger a zebra crossing JavaScript library to do the scan. So by doing this, that means the user can now launch the your Fire application. If your Fire application has one barcode scanner button, you can also do it in the native browser, not only in the Fire client. Right? If you know earlier stage, only the Fire client can trigger the native, do this kind of trigger the camera doing the scan. But now the native browser is more powerful, so we also enhance our UI5 button to also be able to do scan in the native browsers. This enhancement has already been in the UI5 1.92. We also patch into the 1.84.18 patch. So if you are pointing to this any version more than later than this, you should have our new function, right? By doing this, what we're trying to achieve is the client code has no change in your Fiori application. So the same Fiori application can work on both Fiori client, also native browsers. So we hope the migration from Fiori client to native browser will be more smooth after we doing this improvement. If you want to know the new zebra crossing library support what kind of barcode, there's a URL. You can browse this URL. All the barcode type are listed there. So now let me do a quick demo here. Let me start from the beginning. I launched my Fiori client. I have already provisioned my Fiori client point to one of the Fiori application. This Fiori application very simple, just one barcode scan button, right? So I pointed to a book. Yeah, I got the number here correctly. That's how the Fiori client doing the barcode scan. Before we do the enhancement, if you launch this page in your native browser, what you see is this dialog box. So because the native browser earlier don't have the capability to do the scan, so the user must manually enter the code. So now, if I launch the Safari browser, so a Safari browser, I point to the same Fiori application. There's nothing need to be changed in this Fiori application. Oh, sorry, a little bit slow here. Now I click on this button. You can see this scanning screen already very different, right? Compared to Fiori client. So this zebra crossing UI, you can see the barcode also been scanned. That means I can also use native browser to do the scan. What I also done here is I installed the Mobile Star, right? Mobile Star will be our future entry point. I also provisioned, let me go back. I also provisioned this barcode scan Fiori application in my Mobile Star. So if I go in from here, right, I also can launch the barcode scanner within the Mobile Star. Yeah, the same. Yep, that's how my team here, done the improvement on this UI5 barcode scanner button. Yeah, that's all from my side. Any questions?
Very cool. I think that's really cool that this is working now without the Fiori client, and that's what people were looking for a long time already. And as I know now, as I talked with Marian beforehand, this is exactly what he tried also himself. And I think now maybe you can showcase what you did with it already and how you tried to solve that beforehand.
Yeah, sure. So we actually had exactly that problem that James just mentioned. We were using a barcode scanner app and using that in the or we're using Fiori client. So I was really excited when I saw this node. I think it was updated in July, and as James just mentioned, it is available. I think Peter just mentioned in the chat as well, from 1.48.18. So I was really excited when the page came out, and I could patch our system with that version because we had a requirement from one of our departments for a scanner app, and I built a POC with that. But just as a comparison, I can show you a earlier UI5 app. Was about, I think it was my first UI5 app I built, and that was the first requirement was a scanning app. So 3 years ago it was a bit more difficult, but we had our Fiori client, right? So I was using exactly that. I was just checking for Cordova, so our Fiori client environment, and I was using that, what we can use now with the browser as well, like the NDC library, the barcode scanner. So that looks really simple, but then I had a really good foresight and made a else and implemented a custom library to scan in the browser. So our switch was quite simple because we could just switch to the browser. I was using a lot of code, obviously, so it's quite complicated, and I was using QR codes with a custom library. But this code is still in production. But honestly, you don't really want to touch it. So I'm really glad it works. But I can show you now the application we just developed. For that, I have to disable my video camera. So the requirement was we work in a dairy company, so we get a lot of shipments daily, and we have like a list we have to check for the daily products, and that's still on paper. So we want to digitalize that, and so I built just a process for onboarding. So if somebody opens the app, the barcode scanner app opens immediately. So you see me, and I printed this nice 2D barcode, and that's just the number on all the sheets they get. So they scan that. If I hold it this, yeah. So it scanned this number. It's shown here, and just it's gonna be an iPad that they're gonna use. So that's why it looks. It's the dimension of the iPad here. And it's just going to be a request to the backend to get all the details from that tour number, and the employee can then select what kind of type it is, what gate it is, and create then the data set in the backend. And then if you finish there, you just can create another one. So just to show, I can see it's quite difficult with the webcam. Obviously, if you use the iPad or iPhone, it's way more simple because it's a better camera, it's better lighting usually. My webcam is not the best one. But yeah, it's quite a simple app. And the good thing is the code in the backend is quite simple as well. So basically in it, you can have a parameter to immediately get the tour number and don't need to use the barcode scanner. But if you want to, that's the only key in the code you need. That's the same as before. So if you want to use the Fury client, you can use the Fury client as well, but there's no need anymore. And that's those 5 lines you need. And that's really simple to use that, and you can use it on any browser. We also have this little button at the top. That's you saw it in James' screenshot. You can use it in the controller, or you can implement just this button as well. It does the same thing if you use it in the controller. Do it again. Yeah. And the implementation is the same. Really simple, as you know from the controllers. Just get the namespace, same as a button, and the event scan success. So I'm really happy so far with the controller. It's easy to use, and I could use it in any browser on the mobile. And as you saw, it's way more manageable to use a custom control library or anything like that. So far, I'm pretty happy that's available even in the lower system, not just 192 and up. Yeah, thanks. Any questions?
There's indeed a question in the chat from Manuel. With a new barcode scanner, is it possible to scan more than one barcode at a time? I've seen a demo where this worked, but I'm not sure if it was the new barcode scanner.
For this browser, for this zebra crossing JavaScript version, we can only scan one barcode at one time. We don't support multiple barcode scan.
Okay, thank you.
Is something like this planned? I guess most likely not, but no.
No, most likely not. This is really an effort based off of the zebra crossing library, so that is sort of limited to one at a time. Now we do have native SDKs where you can scan 5, 6 at a time. So that's one of the underlying features of the new operating systems, as well as what we are giving on the native side. The scanners are, they're able to scan way more items at a time. We're looking at like scanning an entire palette, for example, but that requires native support.
Then one question that reached me on other channels was, I don't know, you might know that in our demo kit for most of our controls, we have sample implementations there, like a sample page with a list of all controls, and then people can have some sample coding to see how this control is used or can be used. And there was the question, by now there is no sample code available for the barcode scanner, exactly what Marian just showed. Do you plan to provide some sample coding there in the demo kit in our SAP UI5 demo
Yeah,
kit?
that we are looking for now. We're going to provide some samples. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
and
also in the email you mentioned the document that is a historical story. So we are going to clean up that part.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, that was more important that this is possible in the web browser, and now for sure the documentation and so must be adopted there. That's also very good. So currently, I don't see any additional questions. So I think we go on with the next topic, and Johannes, and in case they're coming up new ones, we can also take them then later. So Johannes?
Yeah, awesome. So hey everyone, my name is Johannes. I'm developer at UI5, at one of the UI5 core teams. And I'll try today to give you an update what changed in the past regarding to the asynchronous APIs. So in particular, we'll have a look on the asynchronous loading of XML content. So I'm not sure if I will have time at the end. I also will say a few words about other asynchronous progress we made, but we will start with the interface. We introduced shortly, I guess it was asyncronous. But before we start, I first want to mention something else. Let me share my screen first, one moment. Maybe you, or most of you already know, the performance checklist. It's a step-by-step tutorial almost, which shows you or helps you to apply the performance best practices to your application. And this one does also cover a lot of the asynchronous APIs. We are currently also working on an update to this one, especially because we do not cover currently this new interface. I will show to you now, but we will update it with I guess one of the next versions. Can't promise directly which release it is, but with one of the next versions we will also have an update here for this one. And next to this one, I also want to mention the UI5 Con recordings. So you can see, I guess, almost all UI5 Con recording of this and last year at least on YouTube. But I want to point on a special one I did with Thorsten together last year, UI5 Con. It was called Don't Worry, Be Async. So in this session, we already covered the most of the topics or the asynchronous topics which are here part of this checklist. And the reason also what we also did there, we used an application from the demo kit to demonstrate how to migrate an existing application, the shop administration tool, from synchronous to asynchronous behavior. So why do I mention this? I mention this because on the one side, I want to give you some additional information how to migrate an application to asynchronous application to a more performed application, because going through the whole checklist, it's way out of scope for today. But I also want to point on a question we are facing quite frequently if we come to this topic of asynchronous behavior. And this question is actually, why are there so many configurations to make an application asynchronous? Or can't we just provide a single switch to enable all async features? And to answer this question in detail, that would also take way too long, I guess, but I try to give a short answer and to also point again on the UI5 Con, because in the hands-on session, my colleague Thorsten answered a similar question at the end. We also had a GitHub issue. I guess it was quite frequently. I can also paste it afterwards here in the chat. It's a GitHub issue with a nice number 3333, where we are tackling this, in the OpenUI5 GitHub, where we are tackling this question. The short answer for why have we so many configuration options is, yeah, it's just for compatibility reasons. And why can't we have a single switch to enable all at once? It's just simply not possible because we discussed this already many times. And the bottom line is we can't keep it compatible. And if we would introduce such a switch, like make all async or fully async, it would only capture all currently available flags. And once you introduce another flag, another asynchronous behavior, we could not simply change it under the hood because it would be incompatible again, and we would have a new fully finally async flag and so on. But I say it because we are still aware of the situation that it's not really easy, and that it can happen that a developer easily forgot that there are so many options and maybe does not activate all of the configuration options. And the first step in order to improve this is to provide the interface asyncronous. And maybe you can open the following link. That's the link which is showing partially or mostly an example how to use it and the advantages of this interface, because this interface has two major advantages. One advantage is it saves you to set all of the all of the flags if you are implementing it within your component. This asyncContentCreation does by default that the root view to async and also the routing configuration. And it also takes care that the view and the fragments which are nested are created asynchronously. Plus, in addition, if you call the component create, you get your promise back. And this promise is also containing or taking care that all the views and nested views and fragments are created when it resolves. So that's one major advantage. In this case, you would save at least 2 or 3 async flags you need to set, and makes it a bit more comfortable to use. The second part, the second major advantage of this interface is that you can return in your create content function of the component, you can return a promise and not only control, which was also not possible before. So as already mentioned, we already have some documentation there, but not all of it. We are still improving the performance checklist and stuff like this to also cover this. But the applications, this shop administration tool, which is under the demo apps we used for the UI5 Con hands-on session, this is also already updated to use this new interface. And I guess the other samples are also updated as well. So maybe that's one of the larger parts we had in the past. I will also quickly cover one other thing that's related to loading asynchronous XML content related to the fragments. Maybe some of you already know the fragment.load API. It's already a bit older. I guess it's introduced with 1.58, if I'm not wrong. And this one was introduced as an asynchronous API from the beginning, but it did not behave asynchronously from the beginning because it was creating the fragment or loading and creating the fragment in the background synchronously and returned a resolved promise. And this is also a good example or a good showcase to show how difficult it is to change this behavior afterwards, because a lot of people or consumer used it and did not chain properly to the promise returned. And because it was executed synchronously, they could use it directly with an sap.ui.core by ID, for example, and could use it immediately after they called the fragment.load API synchronously. But as soon as we changed this behavior to be really asynchronous, it was not working anymore without chaining the promise properly. And this was, the fragment.load API got asynchronous with 1.84. And now we also introduced a convenience function for using fragments within the controller to use them, to take care at least of the life cycle or such stuff. So for example, if you use a fragment within a controller or a view controller, and the fragment is, for example, not loaded before the controller is already destroyed. Usually you would have to take care that the fragment is also destroyed after the promise resolves or such stuff. But if you use the controller load fragment function, you get some things, by default. So for example, it's adding the fragment to the dependence aggregation of the controller, which means if the controller is destroyed, the fragment is destroyed as well. Also, even if it's not asynchronously fully loaded, or you get stuff like automatically prefixing the fragment or such stuff. So that's regarding the load fragment. I'm not sure, I guess I'm already at the end of my time, because I could also tell you a bit more. We did some things related for control developers. We provide the new API for retrieving theming parameters in asynchronous API, which was only available synchronous before. We are also doing a lot of stuff with regards to CSP compliancy, where we are removing synchronous fallbacks or try to use only asynchronous where it's possible. But I guess that's way more than we can cover in 10 minutes. I hope that was already helping a little bit, and yeah.
Currently there are no questions, but maybe just to clarify it again. So is it like those documents that also Peter tried to figure out and so on? Is this those where our developers now really actively have to look into the documentation and to see what they have to change when using those new asynchronous APIs?
Only for the one thing is what I mentioned before, the hands-on session. There's already a lot covered of these APIs. The only thing which is really new, where the developers have to actively do something, is with the asyncronous interface. But there is already some documentation available, and I guess at least it will be added to the performance checklist as well. So if you want to make your application most performant as possible or use the best practices, I would keep an eye on this one, on the next updates on the performance checklist, and follow the checklist or check if there's something missing in your application. And this would be fine then, I guess. The other one with the fragment is more over to be aware that it's now fully asynchronous, because we had also some incidents where applications were relying on the fragments to be available immediately after calling the fragment.load, which was never part of the contract of this API. It was just working by accident before. And also to keep in mind with this new load fragment function, which is on the controller, that this is already solving a lot of pain points you probably face if you call the load fragment manually, because with this convenience function, you get some of the stuff already out of the box by default.
Understand. Thanks.
I think there was also, I showed, I think, the async interface and the usage a while back. Was it 2 or 3 UI5ers live back? So I can also try to find the link for that code pen or what it was.
And at least the one link I guess I posted was with regards to the methods controlling initial instantiation. There is, I would say, already now pretty good described what you get if you use it, and there's also an example how to use it. And if you need to see how to use it on a concrete sample, really, I can only suggest to check the demo apps, because as far as I remember, all demo apps which have such an use case are already implementing it or using it. And especially therefore I mentioned the Don't Worry Be Async talk, because there we had this shop administration tool application really in a synchronous way, not using any of the asynchronous features, and showed how to migrate this existing application to the, it's now 1.5 years ago, but to the actual state. And now you can also compare the state from this hands-on session with the current state, and you can see what changed with the asyncContentCreation interface there.
So I don't see any questions. So this means either people still have to think about it and check themselves what you just explained here, and maybe coming up later with some questions, I don't know. But as for today, I guess we can close then. And from my side, I'm at the end and say goodbye.
Okay, thank you, goodbye.
Bye.
Take care, see you in November, bye-bye.